Hello everybody, I'm glad you're here. We made a start on special shakuhachi techniques by looking at koro koro. Today let's look at komibuki and let's start with a demonstration. In English, we simply call this technique pulsating breath, but the Japanese term is komibuki. If you've been in the shakuhachi world for a bit, you may recognize the second part of this word. Buki is a form of fuku, which means to blow. The first part derives from komu, which mainly means to be crowded, but in the dictionary I also found the meaning of to do intently, which may be more appropriate here. Komibuki developed in the region of Tsugaru and Hirosaki in Aomori Prefecture, which is at the northern tip of Honshu, the biggest of the Japanese islands. This is a very cold region with a lot of snow, and it is said that the technique was and is being used to generate heat in this cold climate. Indeed, players should generate so much heat that they can melt the snow around them. Quite a feat if you ask me. As far as I know the history, it was developed by samurai in the Kinpu ryu. The Kinpu ryu is different from most other shakuhachi lineages in that it is not rooted in Zen practice, but it is a secular shakuhachi tradition. And apparently the samurai were practicing komibuki not just as a shakuhachi technique, it was part of their general samurai warrior training. Maybe because of this history, some people have strong opinions about what the proper technique for komibuki is, especially whether to use the hara, or the diaphragm, or the throat, or a combination of these to generate this pulsating breath. If you're interested in more details about the Kinpu ryu or the history of komibuki, you can find some more information in a post by Nick Belando, which I am linking below. And this seems to be a good point to ask you to please, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Thank you. In KSK, we don't place much value on the exact technique, but we just use any technique really to produce the effect. An anecdote I've heard a few times is that when Yokoyama sensei was asked about how to do komibuki, he let the person who was asking him demonstrate what he or she was doing for komibuki, and then pretty much whatever happened said, "Oh, that's okay." So, komibuki doing with your hara. Let me try to demonstrate. I don't think you can see much, unfortunately. So I'm trying really from the bottom of the stomach area to generate the komibuki. To do it from the diaphragm. From the throat. So for me, as you can see, there is not much of a difference. The one thing I would advise against is to just use the tongue, so create the effect in the inner mouth. So this does not sound right, I think. Usually at this point in these videos, I would go into how to practice this, but as we are not very particular about the technique, I think it's pretty straightforward what to do. With respect to the notation, in the KSK notation, it is usually simply indicated with the katakana komi. So, like this here, if you can see. I hope you can see. It is important to note that komibuki, at least in the KSK, is really just an ornament, not a central feature of playing a piece. So if komibuki is indicated in the score, but you don't do it, it is pretty much still the same piece. It is a bit comparable to using vibrato or not. Having said that, however, you should observe a few ground rules, I think. First of all, keep the rhythm and tempo of the piece. So, for example, at the start of Daha, which is this, to really practice this, count the rhythm when you do the start of the piece. And so on and so on. The important thing here as well is to keep the same rhythm throughout the whole piece. So even if you're not playing komibuki, if you're not blowing komibuki, keep the same rhythm for the whole piece. Then, in my view, the next thing to observe, when you play a piece coming from the Kinpu ryu, you should of course add komibuki correspondingly. In the KSK repertoire, for example, there is Nezasa Shirabe, and there you should follow the indications for komibuki. So the start of Nezasa Shirabe. And so on. Nezasa Shirabe is part of the piece Sagari Nami, which I recorded a year ago or something like that. I'll find the link and I'll link it up here if you're interested in seeing me perform a piece using komibuki. And that's already all there really is to komibuki, at least when you play it KSK style. In Kinpu ryu, there is a lot more to be said about komibuki, of course. So to round off this video, here's a little tidbit if you're interested in the KSK repertoire. You will often hear komibuki being used at the beginning of Shingetsu. This is simply because of a recording by Yokoyama sensei where he used it, but komibuki is actually not really used in this piece. And in the standard KSK notation written by Mr. Furuya, it is also not indicated. So, as you can see, this is the beginning of Shingetsu. There is no komibuki written here, okay? But very often this beginning is played as... and so on. I think I can't even remember when I recorded it if I used komibuki or not. Probably I did, but I honestly don't really remember because, as I say, for most of the KSK repertoire, it's really just considered being an ornament. So add it or don't add it. It's really up to you. As always, thanks for watching this video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.